I'm going to preview Arizona. I got to get coffee first. I'll be right back. They're better than they were last year. I know that much. Yeah, they're better than they were last year. And I think one obvious way is just personnel. They went and added a bunch of transfers. Let's look at the Arizona Wildcats coming to Starkville this weekend. Arizona won 5 games last year, and one of their 7 losses was at home to Mississippi State. And obviously, State was running a different offense last year. Scored 30 plus, 35, 38, whatever it is they scored, State did. Had a couple of interceptions in the game too, and that was that first-round draft pick corner that you don't have on State's team anymore. And I think that was early in the year last year, and Arizona did some things throughout the year, especially offensively. It looked like they were getting better. They had the big upset later in the year against UCLA. It was a top 10 team they knocked off. They had close games with USC and maybe one other, where really the issue for them seemed to be quality depth. They would kind of wear down in games as they would go on, and just giving up a ton of yards in the middle of their defense. And they have addressed that with a lot of transfers on the defensive side of the ball that has, one, added to their depth, D1 players, but also added size in their defensive front 7. Here's an example of their defense against a 2 tight end look, and they're going to run it to that weak side, into the boundary against man-free coverage, and so there's a guy there waiting. So Arizona's defense, everything's week-to-week game plan stuff, but this team, for example, tight end here, 2 receivers here, and single back. So it's technically a 3-receiver side of the wide side. Look how they line up. They put 4 down, 2 there, a 3rd walked up. Now that could be corner. I don't know their personnel, but I know this looks like safety off the edge. And from their standpoint of running their scheme, they are here and up to the play side linebacker, which they do a pretty good job. And the tight end gets the edge, but it leaves that one defender unblocked. That future opponents that use 2 tight ends. And this is a formation that State uses, a pistol formation. It might use 2 tight ends. And if you get this, you get an experienced quarterback who gets this and sees it. Okay, I got a 3-receiver side right here. I've only got a single, eligible receiver tight end in the boundary, but they've got 2 defenders off the edge. And what I'm going to do is check to slide protection, maybe play fake, and I've easily got a 2-on-2 route back here. This is man-free coverage, and that safety, anything underneath that safety can't really affect it. He can take away deep, but he can't take away shallow. So, I wouldn't be surprised at State or some future opponent, if you get this, quarterback's going to go easy, or give a hand signal, and we're going to throw a 2-man route rather than running into that edge where we get the edge, we just don't have an account for the other. Or if you have a back that you're comfortable enough making that first guy miss, go ahead and run it, I guess. But just an example of how they line up and defend and tackle. So that's really the first thing I'm talking about here with Arizona, is the fact that they did hit the transfer portal, a lot of it in their defensive front 7, and it sort of changed the way they look up there. They've only played 1 game this year. We'll see how it looks against State. Defensive lineman Bill Norton from Georgia, 6'6", 325 transfer. Played in 39 of 72 defensive snaps last week. Defensive end from Cal, 6'4", 245. Defensive lineman from Indiana, 6'3", 320, played in 26 snaps last week. Defensive lineman from UCLA, 6'5", 315, played 15 snaps last week. Defensive end from Michigan, Taylor Upshaw, 6'5", 270, played in 48 of 72 snaps last week. Linebacker from Oregon, 6'2", 225. Linebacker from Washington, 6 feet, 250, played 48 snaps of 72 last week. So in their defensive front 7, transfers, for example, Georgia, Cal, Indiana, UCLA, Michigan, Oregon, Washington. And they're all big. All right, here they are last week in a 2nd and 12 situation, right? So it's a definite passing situation for the opponent going in. On the other side, getting it close to or just inside the red zone. And so we're just going to look at the rush. So definite passing situation. Look how they split their rush and put that wide 9 in out here. Now, this could be a personnel thing or, an everyday thing. I don't know, but the 1 defensive end out wide. So let's just look at their pass rush on 2nd and 12 and really trying to pressure deep to the quarterback, force him up in the pocket, make him throw it earlier, which they do. So that's just something to keep an eye on. We'll see if they do that against State, but wide 9 pass rush. This quarterback steps up. Somewhere in there you got a penalty flag. I don't know if it's a holding or what, but he thought he had himself a touchdown run here. They are like State. They opened up with an FCS team. In their case, it's one from Flagstaff right up the road there in the state of Arizona, northern Arizona. And their game sort of looked a little bit like State's game. And as it started out slow, it was a little tight in there, and Arizona wore them down and really blew out the second half, extended the score, and Arizona had a special teams touchdown in there, just like State had in its game. So the two teams, State and Arizona, had similar opponents, similar FCS teams, and had similar sort of game flow, in week 1. So really, if you look at one area that is a big fix for them, maybe from last year to this year, trying to make this jump of improvement, it would be, in the defensive front, not giving up a lot of rushing yards. Last year, they were near the bottom of the Pac-12, giving up over 200 rushing yards per ball game. They've only played one game. It's against an FCS opponent, but they allowed 78 rushing yards last week. So, they feel like they're improved. Arizona's defense here last week, 4 receivers for the opponent, including a tight end. And the way they're lining this up is it's a man-free responsibility across the board, and the free safety is all the way back here on a logo off screen. So doing man underneath, on alignment with a free safety on top. And look what they did on the rush against this. Play fake in here, tight end on the line, tight end releasing. So this is, going to be what looks like 6-man rush, but it's not. They actually do bring 2 with the 4 down, but one of those is going to drop when he sees pass. So you do get some droppers. I guess basically not threatened by the running back, he stays in. Not threatened on this side, sees pass, and so they're able to flow back into the throwing lanes, and they do a good job of that, actually. Again, you're getting a runoff out here. You're getting it out here. You're getting an uppercut. It's not really dig, but it kind of looks like it on the backside underneath this safety who's back here off the screen. And what happens is a couple of those drift back into the throwing lane. One here, one here. They do a pretty good job of that with a 5-man rush. But he's able to throw it in that little hole and complete it. Like I say, they gave up an average of 468 yards a ball game last year on defense. The other night, they allow less than 300 to an FCS opponent. But that would be that side of the ball. It's just particularly giving up rushing yards that they want to focus on, I think. And the moves in the transfer portal point to that. And here they come in here to face a Mississippi State team who's making the move over to a running offense from a passing one and rush for 300 against an FCS team this weekend. So it's sort of like something's got to give in these two transitions, State's offense versus their defense. Now, here is something that you could definitely see State do, and that is quarterback read and either give on the speed or pull, where you're reading that play side inside linebacker. Same formation, personnel packages that State will use. They run it here. I think quarterback just kind of chooses the wrong place. And, he did get some penetration. And what you can see is that Northern Arizona is not able to really move them, but they do get some push up front on this play. Real quick here, formationally, down here, they've put 2 safeties back here in this kind of goal line red zone situation and paired it with you got a 3 down, but 4 on the front with 1 walk down. So this is 3-3-5 nickel type of look. 4 on the front, 2 in there. And the formation for the offense, they've got the hip tight end, okay? And then so it gives you a 3 receiver side and speed motion across. And that quarterback can read. It's either inside or whatever, whichever linebacker they're telling him to read. You're going to read one of those 2 guys. And depending on the action, give or keep. If you were to get this snap right here and you get straight, stay downhill or get any sort of rush, you may give it and beat it to the outside where you're going to have blockers and leverage. But as is kind of the case here, if you see him step play side, quarterback can pull it. And this is a Mike Wright package for sure. And what I was saying is, you pull it right here. If you pull this and you get this sort of action from their defense where they've sort of stepped inside, Wright's going to pull this thing and outrun anybody out of the back door, for a touchdown. And so that's something to keep an eye on. They ran 54 offensive snaps against Northern Arizona last week, and their right tackle played all 54 of them. Like, they did not substitute at all at right tackle. After him, the guys who played the most snaps on offense were the left guard, the center, the two wideouts, and the quarterback. And the tight end was in there too. And they use a tight end a lot. He played, 42 snaps of the 54. So he, at least your single number one tight end was on the field for a huge majority of their offensive snaps. And they do have some snaps you can see in the game the other day with two tight ends, but they're primarily an 11 personnel football team with a tight end on the field most of the time. Quick toss left, you're going to pin and pull with your tackle over here on the left side and just get it into the boundary real quick, similar to what we saw this past week with Southeast Louisiana. You had 5 guys on the front, you get on the edge real quick and turn 2nd and 9 into a first down. And it's a little bit old-fashioned, but it certainly is effective. And they're actually going to, this defensive tackle with his hand down, they're going to turn him loose. Like, they're not even blocking him on purpose. Watch him. Turn him loose. Just let him go. Because you're going to be outside before he can affect it anyway. And with the tight end on the end line, pinned down, if you look at pre-snap alignment, they're going, okay, you're going to line up inside. Watch the tight end. Pin down easy. Pull that tackle, right? We're going to turn him loose so that guard and center are up to the next level. We're looking back inside and up to the next level. If everybody gets blocked, man, we're to the house right here just based on alignment. They get off some blocks, which is what you got to do right here. Tackle whiffs just a little bit. Tight end just gets him downfield. You get a first down, come off and make a tackle. Defensively, they're led by their linebacker, Jacob Manu, who comes back from last year's team. He played 53 of 72 defensive snaps in week 1. Didn't come off the field very much. And defense usually rotates a lot more. But he was the guy who was on the field for the most part, kind of the middle, the centerpiece of their quarterback of their defense, if you will. This is one of their starting safeties here, Maldonado, who they are going to be without for the first half of the game this week because of this play. Skinny post, receiver, they call it targeting. And flags everywhere, and he's like, what I do? Yeah, it's one of those where, he didn't go in there leaning on him, but he did, he goes face mask into the helmet. So it satisfies a couple, 3 things in the rule. They go targeting, it stands. He was the safety with the second most snaps in the game at the end of the game. And this is in the third quarter early. So even though he's ejected here and can't play, he still played the second most snaps of any safety on the roster. So, he's one of their guys they depend on, and they won't have him for the first half this week. They have a corner who they're very high on named Ephesians Prisak. I think I'm saying that right, either Prisak or Prisak. But he played right at 50 snaps of the 72 and hardly ever came off the field also. And they feel like he's got a big-time future ahead of him. So just a few high points. Again, it's just one game, but that gives you a little bit of an idea of kind of who they rely on coming in here. Now, let's talk about the quarterback. Watch what he does. Instead of standing in that pocket and throw it and wait for something to happen, he flows. Like, he threatens run and then points him. He just pointed to him and said, hey, go. Get up. Because he knows if I threaten here, this defender's got to come up. And if he doesn't come up, I'm running. So this is just a guy who knows what he's got with his speed and then pulls a defender, now throw to him, it turns into a really big play. So it's an example of quarterback movement and how, if I'm throwing from the pocket, this play doesn't happen unless we break some tackles. But because I threaten the defender, I'm running, I'm flowing. Now he comes up, now I throw, and we got him. So he puts a bind on a defense just because he can move around so well. Jaden DeLaura, we saw him last year against State, and he's a really fine athlete. He transferred to Arizona from Washington State. And you see him last year, and he's a dual threat. He can really extend plays with his legs. He can, scramble very effectively. But he is an excellent thrower, and the numbers kind of back that up. And against Mississippi State last year, he turned it over some, and I felt like a big part of the game when State stretched out the score last year was he had a few times where he probably should have tucked the ball and run for a first down, but instead was trying to pump it down the field for a big play and put the ball in trouble a few times. That was early in the year, and he just got better as the year went on. And now you watch him in week 1 against Northern Arizona. He's cool, calm, collected. He's really quick when he does pull it down to run. He is like incredibly tough to defend. This will give you a little idea of the variation in the offense that they can run. This is a little boot action and then throwback screen here to the running back after you've already faked it to him. They use what looks like some heavies, a couple of tight ends in the game, fake it, roll, boot. Now it's a throwback screen, like a boot action screen that works for them on 1st and 10. And we look at this because this is similar to what you saw 2 tight end looks all weekend against Southeast Louisiana last week. So they put 2 tight ends, the wide side of the field, got a receiver over there too. So it's like, eligible receivers bunched in there. I guess one of them is eligible. He's off the line. But making this look like run, and it's actually a pretty good play. See, the tackle stays with it because you're going to protect the quarterback right there wide. But then everybody else, kind of the same thing, is show, let him boot because you got a quarterback that's going to outrun that rush anyway, and then lineman getting out here in front of the screen. So power look on 1st and 10, little throwback screen off of boot action. Running back makes the first one miss, get a big play. State's defensive front 7 safeties also, but linebacker safeties are going to get the next 2 weeks a handful trying to defend these mobile quarterbacks. And DeLaura is as mobile as any quarterback State's going to see this year, really. Does a good job extending plays. The other night against Northern Arizona on one red zone deal, he tucked and ran and took a real shot to the head and fumbled. This is a nice example here of sort of, creativity from DeLaura because of his athleticism. They got a tight end that makes a 3-receiver side. They're all out. The back's going to check, and so you get them out. It's like having empty out where it's only 5-man protection against a 3-man rush, and so you can watch how they handle that. And the opponent here, Northern Arizona, is going like a 2-gap, over twist, trying to get pressure off the outside, just trying to mix up their 5-man protect. And if we're used to seeing that, we saw that a lot in the air raid. But look, they handle it. You get a couple of combos just like you want. Left tackles 1-on-1. We get 2-on-1, 2-on-1. Take care of a 3-man rush. And so because of that, quarterback, he can't find anywhere to go with the ball in a red zone. Got plenty of time just standing there, and then escape. Make the first one miss. Takes a shot right here and fumbles the football. And it's recovered. So, a knack, a flair for the... And he got his bell rung. He was down. A flair for making some plays with his legs, but this is one of those, he really takes a shot right here. Look how comfortable he is against a 3-man rush. He just stands there because he knows he can make at least one miss. Does, but takes a shot. Delivers it, but the contact kind of got him. When you see the behind ankle, you could see it just sort of, it knocked him out. And I guess, the reason you didn't get a targeting is that lick right there is more of an arm and a shoulder than it is. He's leading in with the head, and the defender's going in kind of standing up, trying not to deliver a lick with the crown of the helmet. But you can see it right here, how he reacts to it. His arms just kind of freeze up, lose the ball. So dangerous play, even though you didn't get helmet to helmet. It's something to keep an eye on. There's no targeting call, but you could see it sort of locked him up, knocked him out a little bit, and he fumbled the ball. He stayed down, and he did get up, so that's something to keep an eye on. Guys who run, they put themselves in harm's way that way. But he's very good at creating. But even though he's not very big, he can stand in that pocket and throw the football with some accuracy too. And we saw that last year. We saw it again last week. All right, this is a one-on-one heck of a go ball throw right here. They're trying to rotate back to cover 3, so the corner's supposed to get out of there, but quarterback doesn't care. He gets a one-on-one that he wants and puts it down here in a bucket. This is a really nice throw. Watch him. One-on-one, bottom of your screen, play fake, throw it, caught. I mean, that's a perfect throw. Can't walk it out there and hand it to him any better. Tight coverage. They were rotating back to the middle of the field. Safety. He's got deep third. You got another deep third over there, so it's cover 3. He didn't care. He was not looking underneath. I'm going to run past him. In terms of formation, Arizona went trips with a tight end, single receiver here. And I just think on the snap with the route, as soon as he saw him flowing back to the middle, whether it's man-free or cover 3, I don't care. I'm going to bet on this guy to outrun him and just throw the go ball. And that's what you get. 1, 2, 3, zip. Perfect throw. Any sort of conditions or heat, I don't think is going to play a huge factor. As of right now, the forecast for the weekend in Starkville is unseasonably cool for this time of year. I mean, it's like a high of 86, a low of 63 in Starkville Saturday. That's what they're predicting right now. Whatever the humidity is to go with that, it's not going to be that bad. They're going to block this one. I think it looks like he's wearing number 7 coming off the edge. And as you can see, I mean, this ball game at this point, it's, third quarter, you're 5 minutes into it. And we got a 14-3, 11-point game, trying to cut it, cut into that a little bit, make it, effectively a one-score game. And this really flips the whole ball game on its edge right here and turns it into a blowout. Comes off the edge, block it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a special teams expert, but, I would think certainly you're trying to get a hand there. But, also, again, I'm not an expert, but it seems like if I'm snapping it right here, I want to be holding that ball right here, not over here, because I've shortened the route that he's got to go off the edge right there. Again, I don't know. Just a great play. Quickness off the edge. Teammate picks it up, turned it into a score. They go up 21-3, and the route was on from that point. Kind of felt like State's game to a little bit, to a degree. Now, certainly the humidity will be more than they are used to out in Tucson. But like Coach Fish said this week, his team's in good condition. They're practicing 105-degree dry heat. You come in here with humidity, they should be prepared for it. We'll see about that. But right now the forecast is really mild for the game. So to wrap this up, I came out of week 1 feeling like Mississippi State, they got a chance to be good this year, especially if you keep people healthy. But they're not there yet. They've got a little ways to go. They got work to do on offense to really work this into a well-oiled machine, and they're figuring out who they are and how they're going to use both quarterbacks, those kinds of things. And in comes this Arizona team that I think is improved since we saw them in person early last season. They got better throughout the year last year. They just had issues stopping and run on defense and gave up a lot of points in their losses. They tried to address that with a ton of transfers in their defensive front 7, better size on the front, which should help them in that regard. And so I just think, they're a fast football team. They have playmakers on offense. They got a really fast quarterback. They now have some size and depth on defense they didn't have last year. This is going to be a handful for State. State's going to have to play well. This Arizona team is capable of winning this game in there if they play well and if State doesn't. At home, a little bit better depth in front of the cowbells, the atmosphere. If State plays well, they should win the game. But this is, I think, more of a toss-up than some people maybe want to believe that it is going into it. With that said, I'd love to know your thoughts on it too, so comment below. I'll read through them. And if you like this, do me a favor, like it, subscribe to the channel. That would be a huge help. And if you haven't already, check me out on Instagram, Radio Wyatt. Follow me over there. I'll see you this weekend in Davis Wade. Wildcats and Bulldogs. Here we go.